York from Maine to Mexico, there's nothing like this Mexico of ours. I'll show you how you flower, while you with an hour, gold powers, hang a shower full of stars. We're the merry Texaco men, tonight we may be showmen, tomorrow we'll be servicing your cars. I wipe the pump, I pump the gas, I rub the hub, I scrub the glass. I touch the clutch, I mop the top, I poke the choke, I sell the pop. I clear the gear, I block the knock, I jack the back, I set the clock. I slash the top, I pick the lock, I take your car around the block. I drive it fast, if you poke the grass, if you don't like it, kiss my Sky G. Fill up with Sky G, and you will smile at the pile of new miles you will add. Fire G, fill up with Fire G. You'll find that Texaco's the finest brand your car has ever had.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week on the early years of SNL, we're talking about Season 4, Episode 17, with host Milton Berle and musical guest Ornette Coleman. This show originally aired on April 14th, 1979. Brad, Uncle Milty's here.
Uncle Milty, live and in person.
With hair dye.
Yeah, there's a lot of spray paint going on up there.
Yeah, it's a lot of something. This show is known as being a train wreck, so who better to join us
than our own train wreck?
I was going to say he's the opposite of a train wreck. He makes everything better. Andy Hoagland.
Tomato. Andy Hoagland.
Well, guys, first I want to object, Gary, to your compliment there. It really will depend on who you ask. So to Brad's point, tomato is like the ultimate way to view Milton Berle's comedy legacy, right? So I'll spin that as best I can. Thank you guys for having me back on, by the way. This is my favorite podcast to be on.
Oh, thank you. And we should say there's probably going to be a lot of negative things said this episode. One positive thing out of the way. Welcome, Andy, to the Five Timers Club.
Wow.
His fifth time on the pod. Welcome, sir. It's a very elite crew.
Wait, hold on. Can we name check so that the listeners can hit pause and revisit the past episodes? I'm thinking Jodie Foster, Louise Lasser,
Charles Grodin. The excellent
yes.
Charles Grodin episode.
Yep.
The excellent Charles Grodin episode. So that's an outlier. And then
Frank
who's the
Zappa.
fifth?
We did Frank Zappa this season.
Oh, yes.
You were on
Yes,
earlier
of
this
course.
season, so this is five.
I forgot
Five
about Zappa.
proper appearances, yes.
I should have remembered the Zappa because that wasn't long ago.
No.
Grodin I've blocked out because it doesn't really count. There's an asterisk
Right.
on that one, right? Like that's a fun
It is a fun
episode.
It was,
Yeah.
yes.
And Jodie Foster wasn't that much of a train wreck. That was more of a historical
Yes.
oddity.
Yeah, just a bad episode, really. That's all.
Meh.
They come from time to time.
And here we are again.
Yeah, not a train wreck like
Right.
yes, here we are. It's good to be here. Good to be
For
here.
maybe another train wreck. I think it could be argued.
It's a very bad episode. I will say that. I don't know if I'd use the word train wreck, but it is a horrible episode, yes.
Can I just briefly comment though that I love that I'm here to kidding aside, be able to recognize one of the true innovators of this art form, someone who literally changed the genre that he is participating in. And by that, I mean, I'm looking forward to our discussion of
Yes.
Ornette Coleman, who is the father of free jazz.
I thought you were talking.
And Milton Berle's okay too. Sorry, Brad.
I thought you were talking about Gary.
Well,
To Andy's humorous point, I mean, on paper, this makes sense. It's,
Sure.
one of the legends of television. Possibly, almost invented the medium, was there since day one. To have him on the show, a la Desi Arnaz, which was a very fun episode.
Yes.
On paper, it makes sense.
Yes, and Brad and Gary, if I can also, listener, please press pause right now and listen to their conversation with Susan Morrison, the biographer for Lorne Michaels. I mean, when I read that book, one of the major takeaways is Lorne's true appreciation for classic TV and that era of entertainment. So it makes perfect sense, to your point, Brad, to have Desi Arnaz. And then you can see Lorne thinking like, oh, wow, Milton Berle, like the father of live comedy, like live TV comedy, like absolutely.
But actually, Lauren was not a fan of putting Berle on. This is a Jean Domanian idea. She really pushed to get Berle on, and Lauren was actually a bit hesitant. He probably could see what was coming, maybe a little bit, but he said he had resisted it, and he had said that it was Domanian is really who pushed him. And
well, now in hindsight, probably Lauren, again, Susan Wilson.
Yeah.
Lauren does not own failure.
that's true. Although Alan Zweibel has written that the networks had suggested it, so who knows? And Gary, you'll love this. Do you know who was at the time a very big Milton Berle fan and like the big supporter of his this week on the show?
Is it Belushi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking that up. I go, Gary's going to love this.
Yeah, that tracks.
But you can totally see that, right?
Absolutely.
Like I totally can envision John Belushi being like, I'm going to go toe to toe with one of the legends. Because,
Well, and Chevy was a big fan, which I think you can kind of connect the dots a bit more. I think Chevy to Milton Berle, that kind of very, and I guess John to a point. It's not hard comedy to figure out. It's very surface. It's very do whatever for a laugh. Like,
right.
I think of that drooler sketch Chevy did in season 1. Like that's like I'm just going to drool on myself for laughs.
Yep.
A la Milton Berle.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say it like that, Brett, you really see the Milton Berle influence on Chevy Chase's humor.
Yeah. And as much as I love John, and I'll agree with you on this, guy, like John does not do high concept comedy. It's a lot of visual. It's a lot of very easy stuff to get over on an audience. So you can see that kind of lineage as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But this episode not being a great one, I think a lot of it is possibly due to Milton Berle, right, Brad? Like, what was going on this week with him there?
Well, it's funny, and I'm glad we have Andy to talk about this, because this is now the, at least third, quote unquote, train wreck in the lore of SNL we've talked about. And I feel like each time we talk about it, by the time we're done, we've dissected that it's not really a train wreck, and it's not, all the onus isn't on one person. And so going back on our previous conversations the three of us have had and looking at this episode, I think it's both parts to blame. And I don't think we talked about this in Louise Lasser, but I think this is an instance that Milton Berle was very difficult. From day one, Lauren said he could tell right off the bat there were problems. I think he even started the initial writers meeting that week on Monday being, I have some ideas. They might go over your head. And it never got better after that. But I think it's a combination of the host not being willing to do things or not getting things, and then the writers, which I haven't really put this together in our other episodes, just not being able to write for the host. So when you can't write for the host, you're going to suffer on your own. So it's, it's ultimately, I guess, the host's fault, because the show can only do so much with somebody like this. I don't know. I didn't realize it till this episode of all the train wrecks we've talked about how a quote unquote train wreck comes to be.
Yeah. I mean, this one, I totally agree with that. And it really is a reminder. And you could probably make this argument throughout every season of SNL that, the host comes in and, their performance is what they're responsible for, but they're also setting the tone for the week. There has to be some sort of rapport with the writers, rapport with the cast, so if there's a failure on that front, it doesn't matter if they're individually hilarious or game to rise to the occasion or what have you, it all kind of has to click. Mm-hmm. And you feel that energy when it does click. And this is probably an example of where it just never came together.
Yeah. Another example, Gary, of it not coming together, Rob Reiner. A host who thought he knew everything, what he wanted, didn't want to bend to the cast. I think it's just accentuated because then we saw Candice Bergen come in and it was such a difference. But I feel it's kind of like that same way. Remember, Reiner had that monologue he had to do.
Right.
And pushed to do it, and it fell flat.
I think the difference, though, between Rob Reiner and Milton Berle was Rob Reiner was the third show, right? Show number 3. So
Yep.
It's early.
Yeah. So they were still trying to figure out what they were. And at this point, they are all stars. And some of them think they're superstars. And so when Milton Berle comes in and he thinks he's a superstar, that's when you're going to get a big clash of egos.
Yeah, that Milton Berle ego is here. I think somebody would commented on the fact that Milton Berle didn't come in thinking I was TV. Milton Berle shows up in 1979 still thinking I am TV.
I am. Right.
Question for the two of you, and obviously we are not the generation to really ask this question to, but are either of you Milton Berle fans?
No.
I mean, I liked him in the Muppet movie.
I did too.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
My reaction watching this was, did this humor play in the 50s? I don't know.
Definitely.
But he's
in the 50s, I think
such a
so.
dick.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know. And I admittedly don't know that much of Berle's, like all of his routines back in the 50s, but I don't know if it was this. Maybe he's just trying to be edgy.
Maybe.
We'll get to it, I guess.
Well, I think it's like just the relationship to the TV audience shifts in the 20 years since he'd been out of the spotlight. You know, like SNL is, as many people have talked about, constantly, almost incessantly, SNL is the signal of the TV generation kind of getting their shot, right? And it's this new kind of ironic form of humor, and it's the baby boomers rising up. And yeah, Milton Berle is just a different generation, and different generations have different relationships with television, right?
Yeah. Well, should we just get into this hot mess that is Milton Berle? I don't know that the episode's a hot mess, but he certainly is, in my opinion.
He is definitely a hot mess. Jesus.
Yep.
So the cold open starts with the Texaco Star Theater, and it's Dan, John, Garrett, and Bill singing, and they're dressed up as Texaco gas station attendants, like the 1950s attendants would have been. And it's all in black and white, and they sing, and they actually do a really good job, I thought, of singing. And they all get their little solos about what they do at the service station. This was a very quick cold open.
Yeah, it's authentic. It's a nice homage to that era, and you watch this in a vacuum, and you're like, wow, this episode is going to work.
Exactly.
Like, it's a nice job. It's a cute idea, and it's like, oh, they're going to be very serious about Milton's legacy on television.
Yeah,
and we're all going to get along.
It's a really good cold open, especially for the host you had, like you said, as an homage. I mean, as the kids out there sometimes say, hot take, I think this is a great opening. Again, like you said, I tried to go into this episode with as few preconceived notions as I can, like not going into hate watch. Like, let me just see it as if I'd never seen it before and try to enjoy it. And going into what you said and not knowing anything, if you just turned on the TV at 11:30 at night and watched this, we're in for a good show. Like you said, Gary, the performances are all really good. I think it's a smart way they do it, where I think the guys are singing. They're the actual lines from the show's theme song back in the day until you get to Garrett. Right. You know, of course, and then it takes a turn. So I thought there was like a really fun, smart way to do that, and then short and sweet, and get you out and get you into the show.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was short, and of course they had to make that turn with Garrett, but it was a promising cold open to the show.
Yes, and promising is a very good word.
Yeah,
I think.
Yes,
yeah, that's a good call.
And then,
because sadly, we get, and they even introduce him, Mr. Television himself.
Yes, Mr. Television himself, Milton Berle, comes out on stage, gets a microphone. As the audience is cheering, seemingly wildly, he's saying, "You want me, you love me," multiple times.
Right. Never a good sign. No. But again, as we said, you're an audience member. You bought tickets to see the show. It's the hottest show on television. Milton Berle is the host. Of course you'll go nuts for him. You don't know what's coming up.
Right.
You don't know he's going to be a poor man's Don Rickles, you know?
Yeah. I have that in my notes. Yeah.
Right? Oh my God.
So he starts riffing, and he's just doing a stand-up routine, and he goes after everyone. He uses the terms black guy, Puerto Rican, and Arabs all within a span of like 10 seconds in different jokes.
Shots fired.
Yeah. He takes a shot at George Burns at one point, which seemed uncalled for, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, was there beef going back to the 50s or what? Like, did they get in a fight? Were they like the Chevy Bill equivalent in like 1946 or something?
I'll take George Burns in that every time.
Oscar winner. Yeah.
That's right. There was a funny moment where someone dropped something off stage, and he said, "NBC just dropped another show." I thought that was funny.
That is a good joke.
That was a good joke.
Do you know the story of that joke?
That's Bill Murray, right?
So again, that was a lure that it was Bill Murray. But apparently during dress rehearsals, again, Milton Berle's throwing all these ad libs and stuff up, and he's rehearsing his monologue, and he tells the Davey Wilson, he's like, "Can you put a sound effect of a pipe dropping?" And he's like, "Why?" And I'm going to make a joke. So that and Bill Murray's actually admitted to that in an interview. He's talked about it. Like, it's not him. It was actually pre-planned. But so Milton Berle, which I guess is part of what he had done throughout his career, set up this ad lib, set up the gag to drop the pipe.
I see.
So he could seem quick, oh, and here's my quick ad lib. It's like, that's hilarious.
Right.
Which I was going to ask you guys, does that take away from it? Like, do you care
Yes.
that it's not? Do you really? Because I was like, if that's the guy's bit and he made it up, I actually don't hold that against him, that he made up his own ad lib.
Brad, in the sense that everything else here is so bad and does not work, it's almost like you want to give him one. And like, oh, well, in that moment, no, like seriously, like in that moment, like something happened and you saw that glimpse of quickness and brilliance that made him like one of the most famous entertainers post World War II, right? So the fact that it's just part of the shtick that he's been doing for 30 years, I don't know, it takes away a little bit. And
Takes
this
away
is the
that
first I'm hearing
shine.
that. Yeah, a little bit.
But in the
Yeah.
moment,
I mean, the joke still works though, but
The joke
but in
does
the
work.
moment, it doesn't. Like in the moment, it works. And so I
Right.
think you give it to him because he's not doing this comedy for three assholes to talk about it 50 years later. Like he's doing it for the moment and it works.
I agree.
I
So
give
you're
him
a
credit for that.
You and I are on the same page, Gary, right? You don't take
I'm
away
sorry,
from
that was your side? Never mind. I take it back. Whatever
Like, it
Andy
works.
said.
Whatever. He constructed
agree.
a good
Yes.
gag, right? Like
Yep.
I give him, it's fun.
yeah, and it's just a reminder how little of SNL is, despite what people want to think with it being live, like very
Yeah.
little of it is actually improvised or ad-libbed or what have
Right.
you.
Right.
But much of this routine has to be ad lib. Like all that crowd
Yeah.
work, the bald guy, and
That's funny
I don't know, unless it
because
was a plant. Maybe it was because he did plant people.
Well, now I'm
in
doubting
audience.
everything. The truth is out there.
There
I
you
got
go.
my tin cap on,
I thought
I know.
that guy was a plant. Watching that, I thought that
Yeah.
whole thing because he hit him.
Well,
Oh right.
yeah,
right.
if he's already like,
I don't know. I
you
don't
know,
think Milton
thinking
Berle cares
through.
about hitting a stranger though.
That
He
is
doesn't
also
strike
true.
me as worried about somebody else's feelings or anything.
You're right.
well, here's the thing. Regardless, he has one-liners for the bald guy in the audience that he's probably been doing since like the Copacabana in 1951
That's
or
true.
something.
That's
Then why
true.
not deliver him well? I mean, it is
Right.
amazing to watch
'Cause
a
he's-
comic
'cause he's-
bomb.
He's washed because he's a washed talent.
I mean,
He is
seriously,
70 years old. I mean, he does say that later. I wanted to play the how old is Milton Berle game, but
I'm going to go back to
Rickles.
Rickles. Rickles is still slaying it when he was in his 80s. Come on.
He's
Dangerfield would have crushed.
yeah. But that's the thing is he is no Don Rickles. Like Don Rickles was
No.
sharp and could do these things, and
Right.
that was his. Milton Berle. Everything was actually a setup, even though he
Yeah.
portrayed it as I can do these things. I'm sharp. He was not.
Right.
Right.
So the monologue felt long, and it felt. I don't know. All the promise that I saw in that cold open kind of started to fade quickly.
Yes. My last note was that was a lead sinker. Like you watch that monologue and all that excitement, Gary, that you just said, yes, just sucked out of the place.
Yeah.
Oh,
Then we get our first sketch of the night. We see Dan come in with a dog as Wydette. So we're getting the Wydettes right away. And now the crowd has something that they're familiar with and they get excited again. So
Right.
that's good.
sure.
Sure. And this is a Wydette Easter. What is it? Uncle Wayne is coming over, played by Milton Berle. So he's now dressed up like all the Wydettes and has the wide bottom. And he hides Easter eggs with Dan. And then Gilda and John come down as the kids and they have to find them. And then eventually he talks about not seeing the footage from last year's Easter. So Dan says, "Oh, I have the projector all set up," and he's going to project it on Uncle Wayne's butt. And that's the sketch.
Hilarious. How dare both of you with your silence? Damning this.
Very often, Gary, after we finish or you finish your sketch rundown, like, Gary, you got to give more of what the sketch is about so people actually know. And I really wish I could say that here, but I think you've said it all.
Oh, you know what? I did miss one thing. They Dan
What
made
did you-
multiple times. Dan said, "Oh, they found no radiation in Hershey bars," going back to 3 Mile
yeah.
Island jokes. Yeah.
Oh my.
Andy,
Yeah.
we've gone through this sketch twice already. We're going to let you go first, please.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say, so this is mercifully the last time I think the show goes to the Wydette well, so to speak. I mean, a couple stray thoughts. The first is, I don't know, like the set is the same as Coneheads. You have kind of the similar family dynamic, at least with the parents. Like this, like I'm not sure if you guys have talked about if this is a Franken and Davis or who's the mastermind behind this. Okay, so you guys have touched on that.
Franken
But like
and
a part of me
Davis,
is like, was this conceived as like, let's get another their name is the premise type family, like a la Coneheads. So that's my first thought as an outsider looking in. On the flip side, I will, I come to, not totally bury the Widettes, because that would be a difficult coffin. But I will say that the thing that I like about this very hacky sketch, and it is hacky, is I keep, like, we're all out of time here, right? We're just three assholes talking about a sketch 50 years later. What I do enjoy about this kind of humor is the show today would never do this. Like post, like, I don't know, like 2003 or 2004 or something. I feel like they're just too self-conscious and PC to do like body shaming or whatever. And I'm not an advocate for body shaming, but it is kind of like, there's an edge to them even trying this kind of thing that you would never see in the current version of SNL.
I don't
like
think
they would never make that joke.
You are fishing.
I don't. So, do you think that they would make fun of someone for being fat in 2025?
No, that they wouldn't. But I
well, that's what I'm saying.
I just can't give this.
Like, but at least back then they were willing to make like once you take like big butts off the table, like what are you doing as a sketch comedy show? Is that fair?
When you put it that way,
you guys see where I'm coming from with this?
Yeah, but I think you're giving too much credence to this being edgy in 1970. Like, I don't think this was edgy.
No, but like I said though, Gary, like this is hacky. This is like some Franklin and Davis attempt of just being like, oh well, the Coneheads have a cone on their head,
right.
So now we're gonna have let's have Jane and Dan come out with huge asses. That's kind of the extent. Like I get that. I'm just saying it's edgy in the sense that today's show, someone would be pearl clutching, like, oh, well, we can't make fun of someone for having a wide bottom,
right. Sure.
And that part, I do want to see a little bit of like, there's something pure about it in that sense, as unfunny and hacky as it is.
I love that you've used the word hacky like 4 times because no, in all seriousness, because I think this is probably the lone sketch Milton Berle is decent in. Like this is right up his alley. Like he understands this sketch. Like he had, he looked at, he got this, like no notes. Let's go, boys and girls. Like it's, I walk around with a fat ass and I bend towards camera and bend over. I got this, guys. Let's go. It's not funny. It's not surprising. This is the first sketch off the bat, and that like Milton Berle just plays into it so well. There's nothing new in this sketch. I actually looked for it. The only thing new, aside from that Hershey bar joke that I forgot about, Gary, I think is he has Gilda come sit on his lap. Other than that, all it is about them having big asses and can't sit on the couch. And it's the first one was with Elliot Gould, and he actually was very good. Like he did fit into the role better. Right. Cicely Tyson, there was nothing there. They were just neighbors with fat asses that came to sit. They had a joke about I think she put her drink on Garrett's ass. That was it. Yep. And this had nothing. I mean, there's just nothing new other than sit on my lap and I'm going to put show the movie on your rear end.
This is the first time tonight out of 3 times. We see it 2 other times where you take a recurring character or figure and then shoehorn someone else in as a relative of that person.
Right.
And and it does not, I would argue it doesn't really work much at all, but you definitely see it. Right. And it's just like, how do we shoehorn them into these known quantities so we can get something funny out of it?
Right. And I mean, this one did have a formula for it before, because that's how they did the other 2 installments. Right. You shoehorned the host in as some connection, but it's thankfully the last one, because they've somehow gotten worse and worse, and they add nothing new.
Right. Well, the next sketch, we go back to Don Kirshner's rock concert, and this time his daughter, this is what I was talking about. Gilda comes on as his daughter. For some reason, it didn't really move anything along.
Is it not for like the disco of it all? Like the young kids, the new music, it's disco, and Don Kirshner isn't disco, but his daughter is. That's kind of what I took from that. That's why she was there.
Sure.
Because he makes some kind of comment about the heterosexual undertones. She misses the heterosexual undertones of the song. Or I forget. I don't know.
They're homosexual undertones.
Are you
familiar with the Village People? So we have the Village Persons come on stage, played by Dan, John, Garrett, Bill, and Brian Doyle Murray. and they sing their song Bend Over Chuck Berry. This was a sketch, Brad, that was originally written for last week's show, right?
Yeah, this was written originally for Richard Benjamin. When you read this and as you see it, it's a very short sketch. And when I read the script last week for it, I kind of thought it was a cold open that they threw away because John wasn't there. They didn't have enough guys, I guess, to do the bit last week because John wasn't on the show. So when I originally read it, I thought it was exactly that, a cold open. They'd come back at the end of the song, go back to Don Kirshner or his daughter, and that's where you get your Live from New York. But yeah, it's the same basic sketch, except John is the Indian chief. Last go around it was going to be Richard Benjamin. And they've added a couple new guys. Brian Dole Murray's in there, and I can't tell who Cowboy is.
I thought the guys did a nice job on their choreography on this too. Like there were parts where they're all just doing their own thing dancing, and then when I got to the chorus, they had some choreographed pieces that they did. Big week for the guys in singing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I liked it. I felt like seeing this sketch and knowing that they had it last week, felt like this was an example of they're having a tough time finding sketches for the host to be in. What else could we pull off? And, they had this idea and it, kind of maybe the set was already being built last week when they thought John was going to come. Who knows? So it was kind of around. I don't know. But when I saw this, all I could think of was like, this is something they could do that they did not have to put Milton Berle in.
But again, like my initial thought is you have your Coneheads knockoff. And this kind of feels to me like, let's have Don Kirshner announce another act and see if that catches. Like it just feels like the show is starting to go back to go back to its playbook a little too much. It feels a little cynical. It feels a little lazy, honestly.
Well, and if you're having a difficult week with a host, it's really easy to just, I think, to what you were saying, Brad, right? You have this script, just throw that in there. Like, oh, let's do this Village Person's thing because he's being so difficult. Maybe he's poo-pooing everything that you're putting in front of him and saying.
You know what the weirdest thing to me about this sketch was? It's obviously a sketch about the song, right? Like singing the song.
Yeah.
Why is the audio so bad? Like you can't hear them. Like granted, I was able to read the actual script, so I know what the words are they're singing. It's actually a really funny song. Like I wish you could hear it because I think we'd enjoy it more. But it just boggled my mind that this whole piece is about them singing. And we can't hear the lyrics.
If you watched Garrett, he got really into the dancing at one point, and he had the microphone so far away from his face. Of course, you weren't going to hear him. That was really funny, actually.
I did notice that. Yes. Did you notice, Gary? And we're kind of jumping our seasons out of order, but I think they repurposed a lot of this set during the off weeks for Bob and Ray, Jane, Lorraine, and Gil to Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Oh, is that right?
It like
that makes sense.
The lights, and it's a very similar set that they use when they record for that.
That's interesting. That you may be right.
I like parts of it. It's not the exact. I went back and compared. It's not the exact same set, but there's parts of the sets that look very similar.
Well, from there we go right to Weekend Update, brought to us this week by Pepto-Bismarck. It prevents diarrhea in German chancellors.
You happy about that?
I am. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I like the little.
These. My first thought was, he got a sponsor back for Gary.
Yeah, I was happy to see that. And then we get some standard jokes about 3 Mile Island, a Patty Hearst joke.
I like the Patty Hearst joke though. She just got married and she doesn't like it's the same old story. She doesn't like his friends. He doesn't like her old army buddies. That's a funny joke.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Right?
Yeah, that was good. And then we get part 2 of Chico Escuela's comeback.
Yeah.
So this is again pre-taped down in spring training.
Yep.
And this is great. It's, he's talking about Garrett has to try to make the team. So they have footage down there of Garrett signing autographs, people with Chico Escuela signs.
Yeah, the audience is all in it. There's banners in the stands and stuff. Yeah. But it was this was cool to watch Garrett actually he's with the team, he's on the field with the players in like a real exhibition game against the Yankees. It was really cool.
And like the way they shoot the footage, it looks like he was actually like, part of it. And
yeah.
He's not like, it's not like inserts,
No.
Yeah. And you see him interacting with like legends like Willie Mays,
Yeah.
Tommy John,
Where does Willie?
Greg
Yeah.
Nettles.
Where did Willie Mays come from? I legitimately
Yeah.
forgot about that and was shocked to see Willie Mays.
Because he must have been a coach at that point, I guess, right? Because his last game is in '73 with the Mets.
With the Mets, yeah.
So
He coached the
and I know
Mets?
he gets kicked out of baseball in like '82 or '83 because he starts
Gambling.
hanging around casinos. Yeah.
Oh, really?
But he might have been a coach in '79.
Oh, I had no idea Willie Mays coached the Mets. That makes much more sense now. Then
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good to see. And they do
he gives him a framed portrait of Julian Bond in a Mets uniform.
Yeah, like this is not laugh out loud funny stuff, but I found it it's a nice feel good story first of all, and it's amusing, you know.
Yeah, I really liked the line where Bill's talking about Garrett and he calls him El Bandito de los Base Paths.
I mean, Bill's really good. Bill does a lot for this. I love Bill's like commentary on this. Where does he thank himself again, Gary, when he comes back? Does Bill say thank you, Bill?
I don't think
he
he
did
did
last
this
week.
time. Yeah, he did last week, but I don't think he did this time.
But the Bill part of it actually does a lot. Really does a lot to pull this bit together, I think.
So sorry, just for folks who are really interested in Willie Mays' trajectory. So he is a hitting instructor with the Mets at this point until the end of the season. It was a little contentious. At one point, he almost got fired by the GM, but Bowie Kuhn, who was the baseball commissioner, had to intervene. And then at the end of the season is when he joins up with Bally's in Atlantic City, which leads to a brief moment where Willie Mays is no longer welcome in professional baseball.
I never heard that story.
Just wanted to know why he was there at this particular moment.
Nice. Look at you earning your keep. Well done.
You got it. But yeah, this is a highlight for me. Absolutely. I like Chico, and I like that it's on location too.
There's something about that that's really nice. Yeah, like it's legitimately shot on location, like in spring training. You can
It's
tell.
authentic.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that makes it a lot of fun. When we go back to the desk, there's some Anita Bryant jokes from Bill. Nuclear reactor. And then they bring out their rock critic, played by Lorraine. So we finally get to see Lorraine. She plays Z Jones. And then she's this kind of fell flat.
That's a good reaction. I agree. It was nice to see a new character from Lorraine because it was something. It is something different we really haven't seen, but something just didn't click.
Right.
Should have stayed back at Groundlings or wherever she conjured it.
No, there's something there. I don't know. It just.
No, I like it, but it's just like it would probably work in like a small theater in like LA, but I don't know that it translates to a mainstream national broadcast.
Because it stumbled right out of the gate. Like she mentions that Elvis Costello and she kind of like paused for applause and there was no applause. And then it just kind of never found its footing after that misstep.
Right.
I really felt like the funniest thing was she gives her number out on air and Bill says, if you're not the manager, you're on the honor system not to call and harass this girl.
That's pretty funny.
The best part was Bill using the term "this girl" was the best part of that line.
Yes.
I liked her line where she's talking about Elvis Costello and she says, he's obviously a combination. He uses Elvis Presley's first name, Lou Costello's last name, and Buddy Holly's glasses. Yes. It doesn't make you a star.
That was kind of good. I like that.
I did too. I was upset that it fell so flat because I was excited to see Lorraine because she was the only one we hadn't seen to this point.
Yeah, and doing something new. I agree.
Yeah. We come back and Bill pulls out a King Tut bust and sings goodbye to King Tut.
You excited for this one?
No.
You don't like these. I know. He pulled the head out and like, is he going to do another birthday song? Yep.
That was my immediate reaction.
Excuse me. Goodbye. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer, but
he tries his best to sell it. He does try his best.
Oh yeah. I even when I don't like these, I think Bill's attempt at selling these bits works for me. Yeah. His effort's always good.
You know what really worked? What? How annoyed does Jane look at the end of this?
Because she didn't do anything this weekend update, right? It was mostly Bill, and then he throws back to Jane, who just says good night.
She looks so pissed off. It's great. Rolls the eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, how great is Jane?
How great is Jane? And that was it. That was our weekend update.
Weaker. No, it's a weak update, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chico Escuela thing saves it. I mean, that was the only thing that worth watching, really.
Because I feel like we've had a good run last couple of weeks of good, long quality updates. I feel like it was. I don't know what it felt weird to not see Father Guido Sarducci or Rosanna Dana. I think that was mainstays for so long that it was noticeably odd that neither of them were there.
You had someone at the desk, and it was a new character, which was good, but because it fell flat, that's what lost it. Yeah.
And you had Chico, so you had two bits.
Yeah. Now we're back to sketches, and we bring Milton Berle out. He's playing Buddy Pine, the proprietor of Buddy Pine's launching pad.
My.
Yeah. This is Jane plays a waitress. Everyone else plays a comedian coming up to do bits to try to get time at the club. And it's all so that he can pitch them on doing a weekly workshop with him for $140 a night. That's what the premise is.
Yes.
He's never impressed. And they all come up and do pretty, hacky acts. Bill comes up. I guess it starts with Brian Doyle Murray up there doing it.
It's always good to
see. Good for Brian, by the way, getting some screen time early on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Twice in one show already.
Oh, it's true, yeah.
And then Bill comes up, and then Garrett.
Ricky Scott, why not?
Ricky Scott, why not? Dan and Gilda do an improv group that are probably too hip for this club.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Their whole shtick of, give us a location, more specific, something different, and it's all just to do the same bit that they do.
It reminded me, though, didn't Franken and Davis do this bit where they were taking suggestions from the audience only to get the improv exactly what they had rehearsed?
Yes. Yeah. Lorraine comes out and sings a song about being a flower child in the 60s, and now she's just a mom.
It's the best thing of the sketch, I think, I'd say.
She did a nice job.
I agree.
And then John comes out as Douglas Brewster, who owns a hardware store with his brother. Yep, that's right.
I couldn't decide if this was like SNL's way of kind of ribbing or satirizing late 70s live comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was Milton Berle's attempt of kind of wagging his finger, or what the perspective was exactly. And then it kind of went on a bit long, and I gave up trying to crack it.
I don't know. This sketch fell flat, no?
Yeah, it's terrible.
I'm trying. I was, to your point, I was trying to figure out like where they were trying to go with it, and at the end, it just seemed to me to be like the antithesis of the bad sketches. Where Schiller can make bad funny,
right?
Yeah,
and this was just
like was there some sort of like ironic like now this is a bad sketch? You're watching bad comedians, but actually it's the sketch that's. But I don't think so.
This just seemed to be like bad being bad.
Yeah,
because it wasn't even like they could be bad and Berle could zing them really well. Like that could have been like something like he had one with, it was the improv one, right? I think Gary, right? Where he's like, can I give you another place? And they said, sure. And he's like, can I suggest outside? Yeah. It was like, like, that was like the only thing. Everything else was like, there wasn't any kind of conflict. It was just one different bad act after another.
And modern SNL has gotten into this habit of utilizing every cast member for like a walk-on. Like there'll be like a city council meeting where they open up the floor to all the town residents, and everyone gets to come out and be silly for 20 seconds and then head off. But even those, although terrible and long on their own, like they at least have a certain logic that threads it. Like we're going to give everyone something to do. And here everyone has something to do. But I was just kind of like, what are we driving towards here?
Right.
Are we driving towards the end, like Gary said, of Milton Berle then offering a class to everybody to pay money? Like, that's what you're driving to, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's it? Yeah.
That seems to be it.
I'll say, I don't think Milton Berle was that bad in this sketch. I think he plays the character well, at least.
He didn't do much. I mean,
I agree, but I think that's what's sad is in this episode, like him not doing much is considered a good thing, I think, to us watching it.
Yeah. It's a shame that it fell so flat, but
there is a bright spot. Bring it to us, Gary. Come on.
Oh, not of that sketch. You mean in the show? So the bright spot of the show, right?
Got his bright spot.
So we get to watch On the Spot, hosted by Joan Face. And
When
her
in
guest,
doubt, bring out Joan Face.
That's right. Her guest this week is, again, Erwin Mainway, talking about Erwin Mainway's Kiddie Fun World of Rahway, New Jersey.
I don't know why. Rahway's always funny to me. I don't know why. It's funny.
So he immediately asks, is this going to be another one of your personal attacks? Which I thought was pretty funny.
Yes, it's great.
Yeah, like, why do you keep going on the show?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you keep booking this guy?
He talks about some of the rides, or I guess Joan talks about some of the rides at Kiddie Fun World, like Thunder Plunge, where they put the kids in a shopping cart and roll them down a hill.
Now, what about this crack the whip? As I understand it, in this ride, you put small children into a large burlap bag, tie it to a derrick, and swing this bag of children round and round in circles until the rope frays and they are hurled into space.
They land in a lake.
A writhing bag of frightened, helpless children flung into a lake.
It's a thrill they'll never forget. I mean, you know, come on.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Mainway, how many little children do you stuff into that bag?
It varies. A bag can hold up to 250 pounds of kids.
I see. Mr. Mainway, why don't you tell us about the Ice Palace?
The Ice Palace, it's a glittering, glistening winter wonderland of ice and snow.
No, it's not, Mr. Mainway. It's a collection of abandoned refrigerators.
But
a very nice Jane performance. It ends with her just like unbridled rage, which is a good use of Jane, right? Like, I mean, I don't know that I need to see, I mean, the first Erwin is classic, right? But like, did he need to be recurring? I suppose, but
I think it's one of the better recurring characters of the era.
I agree.
What do you say?
Yeah, I agree. This is the
You
last
like
time
this
we
one?
see him in this era, too.
Yeah.
I did. I like the other ones better, but I still enjoyed this one for what it was. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so this is the fifth one we've seen. And the first two, the first one's classic, as you mentioned, Andy. The second one's also classic, because the first one's with Candace, the second one's with Jane. And what made them really great was the visualness. It was either, Halloween costumes or Christmas toys, stuff like that. And then the third and fourth ones, it was all verbiage. It was all just him being outlandish and talking about things, I guess. And I think the comedy kind of went away, which I didn't like from those. And they somehow figured out the formula, because that's all this one is him talking about outlandish things. But I think it's written so well, and the performance and just the antagony between the two, between the two of them, I really like this one. This is probably I was glad to see this come back.
Right.
But there's two great chunks of this sketch. The part that you were talking about, Gary, where Joan is going off and rattling off all the rides, and the back and forth between them is great. And then they end it on one of the better endings too, when Erwin starts talking to her about what's so safe about your show. He talks about a kid trying to change the antenna and blinding himself in the eye, and a kid watching it while he's in the bath, and the TV falls in the tub and electrocutes him. I think this is a great sketch. I loved this sketch. Maybe it's an instance of being around so much subpar material. I liked it even better, but I love this sketch, especially after the last two, which I thought fell off in quality. I really love this one.
Yeah, it definitely is a step up from where the last couple have been for Erwin Mainway.
It's a shame this one is not more well known, this sketch. I feel like because it's in this horrible episode.
Right.
I don't know. Dare I say, classic? I don't know. This is a great sketch. I think this is great. You're not with me on this, are you?
I don't know if I'd call it a classic, but
classic.
I know what
Yeah.
you're going for.
It's just
I think that's a stretch, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I understand your
know.
point. It is a good sketch. Well, we get another recurring character, and this, again, we get shoehorning folks into relatives. We get to go with Bobby Farber to the nursing home or retirement home, whatever it is, to see her father, played by Uncle Milty, and her sister comes, played by Lorraine. And this is
Sylvia.
just them, right, Sylvia. This is
The
just
unmarried one.
the girls visiting their dad, played by Milton Berle, who doesn't really do much in this sketch. I do enjoy that he's wearing a gray wig, because he insists on dyeing his hair brown.
I mean, this is a famously bad sketch, right? And like the Farber character was always so kind of amorphous to me. Like it's. I mean, I don't mind Gilda's performance, but it almost seems like it's like an inversion of what a recurring character should be. There's not a ton of defining quality there. So this was not a favorite of mine personally.
Well, I think part of that reason could be is, why is this a Farber sketch? Because it feels like it wants to be a slice of life sketch, but Farber's aren't. She's not slice of life really. Like if they just would have been two sisters, unrecurring, I think it plays better because you're not buying into the Farberness of it all, right?
Or the Milton Berle-ness of it all almost like sucks the marrow that exists with to the extent that this is a good recurring character. I think Milton Berle being there kind of just morphs it.
I think that's true because I think Lorraine actually does a good job of mimicking the Bobby character as a sister, right? For, trying to, again, shoehorn them together, making her something, more alike. I think that kind of works. If you made this a slice of life, just like no character slice of life sketch, I don't really know where you go with it because Milton Berle doesn't really add anything. The funniest part of the whole sketch is Gilda's feeding him soup, and she's so into the conversation with her sister,
right.
She feeds him too much.
Right, and that's what they wanted the subtle joke to be, was that slow burn. Because this is an instance that this was written by Ann Beats and Rosie Schuster, and this is the famous story Rosie's talked about where she had to give Milton Berle notes to not ham it up, to not overplay it, to not like do spit takes and mug in this scene because it was supposed to be a more subdued sketch, and he doesn't understand that and is trying to go way overboard with over the top with it. But I to that point, if that's what they were trying to do and make it like a little bit more, subtle or slice of life, I just don't think having the Farbers works. But you think it does, Gary? The Farber girls?
Oh, I don't think it works. I'm just trying to say, like, where they were going with all of it adds something at the least. Yeah. That's all.
Gotcha.
I'm just trying to see where they're coming from with it. No, I don't think this sketch works, sadly.
Again, trying to piece through sketches, I get the idea of this sketch because in watching it, I thought at the end, I was like, well, this is a sketch they wrote because we could do this with the host. We have an old guy as the host. What could we do? He plays somebody's dad in a retirement home. And to your point, Gary, let's shoehorn him into characters we already know to maybe make it play better, I guess.
But it was like they weren't counting on him like hamming it up like this or doing the spit take, like you said.
They probably thought like, hey, here's a win. We're going to confine Milton Berle to a wheelchair. How can he fuck this up for us?
But it's the style of comedy that he's known for. It's like does not fit for slice of life.
No.
It doesn't gel with who the Farbers are, or who Gilda's character is. Like it's the most like overt example of why Milton Berle was not a good fit for SNL
for the show. Because again, my earlier point of like trying to find things you can actually write for this host and having so much trouble whether they don't like it or you can't find anything that works, and so you kind of pigeonhole yourself into this of, like Gary said, into a let's get a recurring bit. Let's put him in another recurring bit. It'll work. We'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If only he had like his own writers he would have brought to the show. That would have helped.
Oh,
well,
beautiful.
Next we get Berle in a bathrobe and towel, which whatever. And he's talking about, getting a bad rap for stealing jokes. So he brings out his writers and he brings out a group of Japanese businessmen, speaks to them in Japanese and says, I don't know what I just said.
Yeah.
And then he introduces the musical guest. I don't know. I don't know why we needed this either.
I don't know either. The only interesting thing I could find out about this was in the original rundown, this actually was after the musical number, like going into commercial.
Oh, so maybe for like scheduling reasons, they like had to.
Maybe it was maybe it was a longer piece and they shrunk it down and made it into an intro, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Huh.
Right.
Interesting.
But it is weird.
It was weird and jarring, but then we got Ornette Coleman comes on and plays his song Times Square.
So first, guys, I want to ask you: is Howard Shore still on the show at this point?
Yeah. I think we saw him in the monologue. He was running the band in the monologue.
So I think it's very important to note for fans of Naked Lunch, the 1991 movie. Ornette Coleman collaborates with Howard Shore on the score. So I was like, oh, did they meet during this episode? Because if nothing else, that redeems this episode, right?
Sure.
I mean, I was trying to find out how Ornette Coleman got on the show, and I firmly believe it had to be Howard Shore. Like Howard Shore wanted him on the show.
Yeah.
One of those instances of like they want him on the show and they get him on because
it's because he's kind of an obscure figure, right? Like, I mean, he's a jazz musician. And he's like a jazz musician's jazz musician. You know, like yes. John Coltrane was an advocate for him. Miles Davis was not a fan. You know, and it's like he's like an innovator for the other guys who become a little bit more iconic, so to speak.
Right. And he was in New York at this time recording an album that wouldn't come out for another 3 years, it turns out.
Yeah, that this song is on that album. Yeah, like I think a week and a half after this, they record that album all in one day and all like first takes. Like these guys are just like, we're going to lay it down. Here it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the fact that Howard Shore ends up working with him like over a decade later, like that just shows to me that he must have been the advocate here, because it's very much like such a music nerd pick for a musical guest.
Yeah. And is he always? I will admit I do not know Ornette Coleman. I know like he formed this band Primetime a few years ago for this kind of like funk jazz sound, but he hasn't always, he evolved into this, right? Like he used to be a straight up jazz guy. I mean, he's been around since the 50s and 60s.
He's the one driving this style of free jazz
at this time.
You know, he's one of the godfathers of this brand of music.
Okay.
Right. And like he goes on to work with like the Grateful Dead and, kind of do like the rock version of like all free associate, like the jam band type stuff. He's like the jazz equivalent of that. But yeah, he's been around for, at this point, at least 30 years.
But was he always doing this kind of music, or when he created the band with Primetime is when this particular style?
Yeah, no, like he was like on other people's albums and stuff, from what I understand.
Yeah,
and he kind of was like a studio musician and backing other people up, and then this is him kind of stepping out and becoming an influence onto himself.
Okay.
He's been making records for over 20 years at this point, and some of which he's just a session musician, some he's a guest star, and some he's the actual band leader. And they start out as your normal contemporary late 50s, early 60s jazz. And he, I don't want to say slowly, because it kind of happened quick from what I read, where he kind of takes this turn and takes it to a different place.
He's a pioneer. He's a genuine pioneer. So in a weird way, this obscure way, it's very cool that he's on this, maybe not this episode, but on SNL period.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he originally, I believe, had 2 numbers. I was looking at some old show rundowns. He had this and another number that he was, maybe he was just rehearsing to. I should say it was a rehearsal schedule I saw. So maybe he was just rehearsing, but he did have, because it was weird that they only gave him 1 number. I don't know. I thought
yes,
it was a long number. I will say, like it wasn't.
It was long.
Well, they had to do the Village People spoof, and they had to do the next song as well.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. I know we finished this, and I looked. I'm like, they're going to Sun Ra this guy. Give him 1 number. End of the night. Goodbye. You're too weird to go on our earlier musical spot. You got to go at the end of the night.
Sun Ra is a good example, or a good comparison.
Yeah.
But no. There's this other debacle to put on.
So after Ornette Coleman, we get a fade up to Milton Berle sitting down in front of a piano, and I just wrote, "Oh, good, now he's going to sing."
Yeah,
and he does. He sings September Song and stops.
Yeah,
very quickly.
And he brings his own pianist. The ball's on this man.
Buddy Freed.
Schaefer. Buddy Freed. Legend, Buddy Freed.
So yeah, and then we just get more banter from him.
Yeah,
that I didn't think went over well with the audience.
I forgot this went this long.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, he just goes on and on. He's shelling his book at one point.
Yeah,
like what?
Yeah.
I wrote down a question for the 2 of you. Is this song, monologue, talk to the crowd worse than the Louise Lasser breakdown.
It's on par.
Yeah, I would say it's worse.
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, like the way I kind of think about it is Louise Lasser clearly was going through some sort of moment, right?
Yes.
And she's not one of the most iconic, brilliant live comedians of all time. Milton Berle is. So you kind of got to grade him like Milton. It's rough.
But this isn't a comic piece. This is him just waxing
He
about.
tells jokes.
Oh,
He's
right.
trying to
Sorry.
make it funny. That's the
I'm
thing.
sorry. I forgot he tried to make
It's
jokes.
like he can't read the room at all. Like it's such an example of just a washed comedian. It's like when these days Chevy Chase is trying to tell jokes, and you're like, God, Chevy, it's not the '80s anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
God, that's a great comparison.
But that's what we're seeing here. It's just someone who just does not. He's not getting with the times. He's not like working with people. He just thinks it's about him, and he belly flops.
What's amazing, though, is that this is 1979, and he clearly is not with the times, and it has passed by him. But Milton Berle is someone that he still showed up for our lives as kids. Like he was still popping up places and present when he had no right to be, honestly, in things in the 80s and 90s, but he was still around, and it's kind of amazing.
That it's just incredible that Milton Berle's career begins in the silent film era, and it ends on Keenan and Kel. Someone who's currently on Saturday Night Live has worked with Milton Berle, or at least had him on his kid's sitcom. But that's how much longevity we're talking about. The guy would not go away.
No,
like he spans generations.
Wasn't he doing drag bits with like RuPaul in the 90s? I feel like I remember that.
That was like a famous MTV moment, wasn't it?
It was like an award show. Yeah. It was an award show moment where RuPaul went off script and said something about him used to dress up in dresses, and now he wears diapers.
Oh, right. Like RuPaul put him in his place. Yeah.
Yeah. And Milton Berle, this was like a quick thing, though. He immediately turned and said, "Oh, we're going to go off script. Let me put my brain in." But I mean, his career started as a child.
Yeah.
So we're talking
like 11, I think. Something really.
20s. Yeah.
Jesus.
So
I think, 1920 or like even like 1919 or like it's really early.
Really early.
Like he works with like, I forget if it's like Greta Garbo or someone, like a classic silent film actress.
Sure.
To Keenan, all the way. It all circles back to Keenan, guys, no matter what.
That's how long Keenan's been around.
Yeah, Keenan's Farley.
This was rough. And this is another one of the famous stories where before he goes on, he looks to Lauren and goes, "Don't worry, I've got the standing ovation ready." Because he had all these plants in the audience. And so at the end of this horrific monologue or whatever the hell it is he does, like people start standing up and applauding, and it's like, what the hell is going on?
It's amazing.
Brutal. This one might be worse than Louise Lasser.
As an episode? I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Zappa, if you guys might remember, Zappa I was kind of keen on. Like I appreciated Zappa, I think, more than the consensus is.
Zappa was more like of a disappointment than well, I don't know. It was bad, but yeah.
Yeah, like was it truly a train wreck in the sense of like Lasser's that is a train wreck. That's a bad episode, I think. But this one might be worse because
maybe.
I don't know, expectations should be higher for Milton Berle.
Should they? He is 70 years old at this point.
And he's out of his element. Like Louise Lasser, you'd think maybe she's not a stand-up comedian, but she was of the time. That
fair. Yeah.
Going in, I would expect a Louise Lasser episode to be better than a Milton Berle because
Milton Berle, he helps pioneer live TV comedy, and he's supposed to be one of the sharpest guys out there, but it's glaring how out of step he is, and his ego is to blame.
Absolutely.
I just heard a story Tom Schiller was telling, and I'd never heard this before, but apparently it was known that during the show, John Belushi was going under the bleachers and like telling people to laugh. I had never heard the story before. And like Schiller confirmed it. Like John would be going around and be like, laugh. Cause he like wanted people to love Milton Berle so much on the show.
Right. He was the one guy who wasn't put off by his obnoxious behavior.
He was like, I like that obnoxious behavior. I can do that.
Right.
When we get to the closing credits, Dan and Bill look pissed. Like Dan sits there with like his hands on his hip, like looking into the sky, like couldn't wait to run off the stage.
Yeah, Dan did not look excited to be there.
Bill is noticeably on the side, like not wanting to talk. Bill Murray, I just watched an interview, was telling a story about he was doing a sketch that never got to air, but Milton Berle was supposed to come up. I'm never going to do this justice. And Bill Murray talks about how Milton Berle comes from all the way at the back of the stage and like walks up behind him and takes the mic from him. And he goes, it's like a fucking vaudeville 101 move. Like he's so pissed of Milton Berle trying to just upstage the sketch by like walking through to get his moment on the microphone.
Well, the good news is we don't have to watch it again.
No.
We're like Mystery Science Theater 3000 robots. I'm Tom Servo.
I mean, this is not a good episode, but maybe not surprisingly, not the train wreck SNL lore has you to believe. Like we
on screen, correct.
Yes, like you watch it, it's a bad episode and it has its reasons, but I think it's another instance, Gary, I know you love Lorne, of what they're more upset about is not that it was a bad show, but that someone, not Lorne and not SNL, tried to take the reins and run the show. Right. And that's what pissed them off, is someone went out of their construct of what they wanted to do, and now they're banned.
Right.
If it had worked, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Of course. Here's my question to you, Gary. Not comparing to Louise Lasser. Is this a worse episode than Cicely Tyson?
From a comedy standpoint,
from a comedy and just a material standpoint.
I'm just going to take the talking heads being on that episode totally out of that then and say that there's a little bit more here than in the Cicely Tyson episode.
I agree. I think Cicely Tyson is easily worse than this episode for a variety of reasons.
The only redeeming thing in the Cicely Tyson episode, aside from the talking heads, was Cicely Tyson calling them out for putting Garrett in drag so frequently. Well, Andy, that's the show. What are your best bits?
Wow. The musical guest and Chico Escuela.
Brad, what are your best bits?
On the spot. As I said, I thought it was a great sketch. I loved it. And I kind of want to put the cold open in. I mean, by the end of the episode, you're very unhappy with the episode. But remember, starting off, it was a great start to the episode, especially for what it did for the host. It turned out to be a prick.
That part should not be surprising, though, either, to anyone who watched Milton Berle from this point on, that he was a dick. Oh, I really like the cold open as the best bit. I didn't think of that. I had Chico Escuela and On the Spot as well. So one from each of you.
Nice.
So Gary just picked all of ours.
That's right.
That's why he goes last.
When you go last, you're just cherry, whatever you got.
Exactly. I got a couple of sketches that didn't make it, Gary, if you want to hear them.
Do I?
You don't have to. You could say no.
No, go on. I do.
Disassociate, Gary.
There was an airline sketch, a Tom Davis sketch that had Lorraine as Sherry again. Oh. And she's working the lost luggage claim area of a terminal. And I think this might have been a holdover from a Michael Palin episode, because the sketch is about Milton Berle plays a guy and he shows up and he's covered in like soot and burn marks and his clothes are smoking, and he comes in because he was just on the flight that just crashed on takeoff and he's looking for his luggage. So he's trying to deal with Sherry. And there was a page in there that she was then talking to somebody named Michael who was taking a flight to London that crashed. So I don't know if this was like a holdover from when Palin was on earlier in the season or something, and there was another interesting one with Franken and Davis and a rare John credit where it was called Drug Public Service Announcement. And it's John, Lorraine, and Milton Berle, and it's celebrities coming on talking about, how drugs are bad and how they've kicked their drug habits. So John comes on first and does this little soliloquy about how he used to be on drugs, but he just kicked them. He's been clean for 4 hours. They cut to Lorraine. She had showed a picture of her. She drew of herself when she was on acid, and it was like a Salvador Dali painting. And then Milton Berle comes on and he starts to speak just gibberish, and they put a chyron below him just saying Chevy Chase. And as he's talking, Pardo came on and said, "Don't be a dope. Drugs are no joke." So those are two sketches that had made it, I think, through dress and never made it to air. I think they had a Schiller's reel in the pipeline this week that didn't come out, as well as maybe a Mr. Bill. So
I mean, all those sound way better than some of what we saw.
I know.
Doing the Barber's retirement home. Yeah.
The Mr. Bill, I got to think, I wonder how much they went over because there is a lot of Berle like ad-lib. I think a lot of that monologue was ad-libbed and some extra, I wonder if they just went a little bit too long and it was just enough to push Mr. Bill off the edge, but I don't know.
Too bad.
But those were a couple of the things I was able to find, a couple sketches that I think there might have been a Candy Slice sketch possibly.
It definitely would have been better with those things in it, but we didn't get it.
I know.
That's our show.
Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much again.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Of course. Yeah, we'll have to talk about season 5 at some point.
Well, listen, Andy, season 5 is kind of a train wreck in itself. So
yes, I was about to say, how do you pick?
Well, we don't. Andy, it's your show from now on. So
yeah,
have fun.
You're in the 5-timers club. Pick a show. You tell us when you want to come on.
I'm going to be like the Milton Berle of guests on the Not Ready for Primetime project. But thank you guys. It's always great to be here to talk shop here.
Yeah. Where tell everybody where they can read your stuff.
Sure. So Vulture just had a piece run. I did an interview with season 11 writer Carol Leifer that I'd encourage people to take a look at. And then, as always, over at Entertainment Weekly, I'm doing the recaps for the modern SNL season 50, as well as I just posted something. I got to go to the Mark Twain Prize with Conan O'Brien. So got to get a couple quotes there from some folks, and they ran a nice piece on that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot, but since the season finale is this Friday, do you have anything in the works for the summer? Are you doing kind of any SNL summer stuff, or you just take it laying low?
Yeah, I'm just gonna lay low a little bit. I mean, I always love to do the Vulture stuff, so hopefully I'll get an opportunity to maybe talk to someone along those lines. But yeah, this has been an exhausting year.
Yeah,
with all the SNL 50 stuff and doing the big project with Vulture. We talked to like 65 different cast members and writers and such. It's been a lot of SNL.
We should say, if you missed that and all, we talked about it when you were on for the 50th. There was just so much content and so much crap out there leading up to the 50th. If you missed it, go back, take the time this summer. If you're not doing anything, check out that Vulture piece on SNL 50 because it's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should say, if you got the time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, I'm looking forward to just laying low and talking to Patrick Weathers in my downtime.
Nice.
You and me both.
Well, it's always fun to talk to you, Andy. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Next week, we're talking about the replacement for a week off. Bob and Ray, Jane, Lorraine, and Gilda.
Ah, little deep thoughts, eh?
Deep thoughts on that show which aired in season 4 of SNL as a replacement. Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
And have a pleasant tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also drop us a line to let us know what you liked or didn't and what else you might like to hear in the future at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us on social media everywhere at nr4ptproject. Thanks again for listening. Have a pleasant tomorrow.
Bend Over Chuck Berry. I don't know. It's a funny song.
Give us a funny line from the script. Make it funny.
Let's see. I cannot make it funny, but I went down to the disco, tried to make it with my local DJ. He's got the cutest little fanny, and he knows which records to play. Well, I walked up and told him, I felt lonely. Would you play something gay? Well, he told me he was macho. He said to save the last dance for him. He was moaning, Lord, I miss you, as the disco ball started to spin. Hey, bend over, Chuck Berry.
You were right. You could not make that funny.
I tried to warn you. That's